Okay, Nathan, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. So I welcome everyone to tonight's meeting. I now call the meeting to order. We'll go through the procedural rules again, just for a reminder. All members should remain muted when not speaking to reduce feedback. All web cameras for Heritage Committee members shall be turned on. Staff will be requested to join the video meeting should a need to answer questions arise. Persons who have registered for this meeting and who are speaking to applications will be brought into the meeting upon the introduction of the item. Any member of the Heritage Committee should indicate they wish to speak by pressing the raised hand button on the participants list screen. In the event of a connection or service interruption that affects quorum of the Heritage Committee, we may recess for up to 15 minutes to regain quorum. If quorum is not achieved, the meeting will be adjourned. All members of the Heritage Committee participating via online video conference will vote by a physical show of hands. The chair will indicate to leave your hands raised until he has determined the result of the vote. So with that, I would like to invite everyone to our newest member of the Heritage Committee, Dan Brown. So I mentioned to Dan earlier today that we'd have an opportunity to briefly introduce ourselves to Dan so he knows kind of other people on the committee and what perspectives they are bringing, and as well an opportunity to learn what Dan does for those of you who may not know, and know how everyone on the committee kind of works together. So I'm going to go in order on my screen. I guess I should start. So I'm Nathan Etherington. I'm the chair of the Brantford Heritage Committee. I come to us from the Brant Museum and Galleries Association as the representative for the group to the Heritage Committee. And next on my screen is Dan Brown. So I'll let Dan go ahead and introduce himself. After you take yourself off of mute, Dan, sorry.
There we go. So I am Dan Brown, and I restore old houses. I've been doing it for about 30 years now. We're just starting our 38th project right now on Oak Street in Brantford. We normally do the worst of the worst houses where we have structural issues. The houses are about to fall down. They've been not lived in for years and years. We also build new houses that look like old houses. We use old materials with the new materials to build the houses. And yeah, we've been doing that for quite a while now. I also work at Johnson's Wax full-time for almost 30 years now. And I'll be retiring soon and doing houses full-time after that. So.
Great. Sounds like you're going to have some good insights for our Heritage Committee, Dan.
Oh, I hope so.
So next on my screen is Christopher, who is also one of our newer members to the committee.
Hi, I'm Christopher. I am a student at the McEwen School of Architecture, and I've always found heritage to be quite interesting to go through and also design and to preserve.
Great, thanks, Christopher. Councillor Wall.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, Joshua Wall. I'm the councillor for Ward 5, which is downtown Eagle Place and East Ward. I've actually sat on the Heritage Committee since before I was a city councillor. I just am passionate about the history, culture, heritage, and people of Brantford, Brant, and I'm happy to be here.
Thanks, Councillor Wall. Next on my screen is Rob Adlam.
Hello, my name is Rob Adlam. I've been on the Heritage Committee probably about at least 10 years now. I represent the Canadian Industrial Heritage Centre. Fifth generation of my family to work in Brantford's industries. I also work at Johnson's Wax and been there for about 25 years.
Great, thanks, Rob. Next is our Vice Chair, Tamara.
Thanks, Nathan. Yeah, I'm Tamara Capoli. So
real estate broker in Brantford now, so almost 15 years, and also doing landlord, own a few rental properties, and a home construction business as well. So we do focus on infill mostly. So yeah, very interested in maintaining the integrity of the downtown. Part of the appeal of Brantford is a lot of the historical significance of it, and looking forward to encouraging that and keeping it going.
Great, thanks, Tamara. And last on my screen is Ed. Go ahead, Ed.
My name's Ed Bernanke, and I think we once met, Dan, at in front of your house a long time, about 6-8 months ago. I just basically returned to Brantford after being away for like 40 years or something. Lived in Australia, New Zealand, a lot of countries where I got quite fascinated by architecture, design, how, just how people fit into society around the architecture, and just why that I think is really important, design, because it kind of motivates and it can kind of create behaviors and all kinds of things. And I just think that we need to keep focused on shaping the designs of buildings and architecture, because that's where we live. And that would be my story there.
Great, thanks, Ed, for sharing that. And last but not least, by phone this evening, we have Lise.
Am I unmuted?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Lisa Marie Jansen. I am passionate about built cultural and natural heritage. I think we can do more as far as adaptive reuse of our existing built heritage, and I helped in the past, way before Heritage Committee, helped provide the research for saving the Langford Schoolhouse, and in recent years I've been a board member of our Brant Historical Society.
Great, thanks, Lise. So hopefully that gives Dan a bit of an idea what each member brings to the committee and adds value. So thank you for that. So item number 2 on our agenda is declarations of conflicts of interest. If you have a conflict of interest, now would be your time to declare it. Seeing none, there are no delegations or presentations for the committee, so we'll move on to items for consideration. 4.1 is a proposed alteration to 152 Brant Avenue. And I would call upon Sarah St. Mont to speak to this application. And Sarah, you have 10 minutes inclusive of questions from the committee. So whenever you are ready, feel free to go ahead.
Sorry, I think, Sarah, I think you might be muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. So I'll start again. My name is Sarah St. Amand. I am an interior designer. I have recently purchased 152 Brant Avenue, and obviously it's a beautiful historical building. And you're probably able to follow along with my proposal here. So I'm trying to look for, obviously, in the business that I'm in, a very tasteful design. I do have an understanding of historical, as I learned that in interior design school in my 3 years at Sheridan College. So I do have a good understanding. I obviously want something very tasteful, not only for myself, but as a representation for the community. I don't intend to have anything that obviously is backlit, because that's obviously not the right direction. Something that's just very simple with my name on it, and the business will obviously be the direction there. So I don't know if you want to follow through with my proposal here and just flip to the next page. So this is the building. I don't intend to do anything different to it, other than possibly a little bit of painting in, again, very tasteful colors. But the sign is intended to go on the front lawn on the left-hand side. I'd like to construct that in a very similar fashion to the front porch, where there will be 2 columns on either side of the sign, and obviously some millwork detail to that. The sign will be crafted likely out of wood. Obviously, I'm in the stages of getting quotes, but it will be, my intention is to have a wood sign with carved out letters, possibly in gold. So that's the direction that I'm going. And again, very tasteful. Black, white is my color palette. I have a bit of a soft pinky color, but I'm not sure I'm going to use that in this particular case. Yeah, so my sign, I understand there's parameters to the size. So I'd like to do the size as large as allowed. And as far as lighting it, I see just a couple of either a gooseneck type of light over top of the signage or some kind of spotlights coming from the ground. So yeah, so I don't see anything that's going to be an eyesore. I think it will fit in beautifully to the neighborhood. I've lived in Brantford all my life. So I'm familiar with the neighborhood of obviously the adjoining parallel street, Dufferin Avenue. And obviously that's the area that we want to encompass to make sure that it's in keeping with everything on the Brant Ave street. The signage as well, the posts I'm considering likely in a black, or it could be in a taupe color. But again, some of those details I'm just working through. But as you can see from the building, and the sign constructed and being on the left-hand side as the arrow placed. We've just done a little bit of a CAD drawing for you just to give you an indication of where the sign will be. So when you look at the walkway to the house, you can see that it's to the left, obviously facing the road. And then moving on to the next slide, just a very simple construction for the pillars, very much like this, simple millwork painted in a color that we like called space black, which is a Benjamin Moore color. I may refer to the historical palette that Benjamin Moore has. They have a collection of over about 100. I used to work for the head office of Benjamin Moore, so I'm very familiar with the historical color palette, which has been developed as, for the reason of this purpose. So, whether or not I go in a black or a charcoal gray of some sort, that's where I'm headed with that. But the columns are very tasteful and in keeping with the building, in my opinion. So hopefully that works for you. Moving on to the next slide. This is the intended look of the sign. So as you can see, the pillars, we have the 5 foot by 3 foot parameters that are indicated as the options. 6 by 6 posts will be engraving into the signage where we'll have the gold lettering engraved in the sign. And, I think that will be a lovely addition to the property. So yeah, mostly wood painted. If PVC is necessary, the PVC will obviously be, painted. It won't be like an eyesore or anything like that. So sometimes it obviously depends on the elements and weather, and the signage has to obviously maintain through the winters and that sort of thing. So because of my experience in this realm and because of my being an interior designer, I'm hoping that you find this to be a suitable addition to the property, and that if there's anything that is required to be changed, we'd love to know, but this is the direction that I'd like to go.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. Does anyone have any questions for Sarah? Any members of the committee? No? Okay.
Oh, I did great, I guess.
Thank you.
I filled in all the gaps.
Yeah. So now we will go to the staff presentation. So just hold on there for a minute, Sarah.
Sure.
So we'll have staff give their presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Patrick Rooster, Planner and Long Range Planning, and providing a staff presentation for Heritage Permit Application HA0521 for 152 Brant Avenue. So the property is a 2-story Italianate single detached dwelling. It's located within the Brant Avenue Heritage Conservation District. It's located, I believe, between both sort of arms of Lorne Crescent and Brant Avenue. And so we have another view of the front of the property, showing a side addition. So the applicant is proposing to install a 2-post ground sign. Ground signs are the preferred design or type of signage in Brant Avenue. For the information provided by the applicant, the sign base will be constructed of PVC panels or wood, as was just noted. Wood is a preferred material. PVC, other materials can be used. The sign bylaw guidelines for signs on heritage property do permit other materials. Just recommending that they be used in the same manner as historical materials would be used. So in either case, if a wooden sign face or a PVC sign face treated properly, both are appropriate materials. The posts, as shown, would have millwork and be constructed of wood, again, preferred material. The face of the sign would be painted black, and as with the post or the taupe, colors for signs should be either neutral or within the historic color palette, such as the Williamsburg collection. The black and taupe colors are both neutral, which fits with the guidelines. Etching of wording and design features is one of the preferred ways, having that 3D effect to the signage. And so based on the design, staff considered it against the sign bylaw guidelines and find that it is appropriate for the Heritage Conservation District. The sign overall actually fits within the minimum sizes for signage, so it complies with the sign bylaw. As shown by the applicant, the sign will be installed in the front yard of the subject property. Per the CAD drawing provided, there will be one sign face oriented straight towards the street. Staff have reviewed the sign bylaw regulations and setbacks and can also confirm that in talking to the building, the sign does comply with the setback regulations. On the basis that the sign meets all the design guidelines and is sympathetic to the design of 152 Brant Avenue and the Brant Ave Heritage Conservation District, staff are recommending that the proposed alteration be approved. And that concludes my presentation. I am happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Any questions for Patrick from members of the committee? Dan, go ahead.
What about positioning of the sign? Right now, it's planned to go across Brant Ave this way rather than this way. Is there a standard for that?
Sorry, that was an error in my assistant in the drawing. The sign actually should be going against the, like opposite the street, not parallel to the street.
Okay.
So yes, so sorry, I noticed that on the CAD drawing as well. And yeah, so it should be positioned that way. Otherwise, it's not really seen that well off the street. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else, Dan? No? Okay. Any other questions for staff? Okay. Thank you very much. So we have a proposed motion that this be approved. Would someone like to make that motion? Tamara, seconder for the motion. Christopher? That's the next hand I saw. Any discussion on the motion? No, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Hands raised. Hands down. All those opposed, there's no one. So I declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. So now we will move on to item 4.2. This is a proposed alteration to 176 Wellington Street, and as well has ramifications for Heritage Grant program. So I would now call upon Khadija to speak to the application.
Oh, hi everyone. So my name is Khadija Ambreen. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm the owner of the property at 176 Wellington Street. So the condition of the exterior walls of the property is deteriorating like very bad. And so I initiated an application last year for repairs, but due to COVID, it could not be moved further. So I stopped any further progress on that. And then, right now the bricks that were loose, they're just falling apart. It's in real urgent need of repairs. because the outside bricks at every corner of the property, they're just coming out, they're falling. And the cracks are becoming broader, wider, and it's in a bad condition. So I really appreciate the opportunity to convey my concerns of the condition of the property and request for the permit to be issued for the repairs. And further, you know what, I would really appreciate for the grant also, because it's too much of a financial burden on me right now, because there are also issues inside the property as well that I have to handle myself. So that I'm taking care of. And if it's not been done like immediately, the repairs, it's going to further complicate further issues, you know, the water leakage inside through the cracks, and the cracks are appearing in the ground as well. So yeah, I'm just extremely stressed right now because it's extensively raining this whole season and every day counts here now. So I would really request that, you know, please a permit should be issued that I could just start the work immediately, the repairs. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much. Does any member of the committee have a question for the applicant? Councillor Wall, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Thank you for your presentation. Quick question, just to confirm, you were saying that because of the delays with COVID, you were unable to get before this committee to be able to get necessary work done on your building.
Yes.
Concerns me. Were you able to take any remediation efforts to prevent further damage in the meantime?
Actually, you know what, the contractor that I arranged, he vanished. I was running around after the contractor, and then, you know what, I requested that I'm going to arrange for another quotation, and I'm completely not aware of contractors who deal with this brick restoration work. So it was just, you know, and I started in September, October last year, and then winters came, and then, you know, it was all postponed for next year. Okay, so I'm going to look for a contractor. And to be honest with you, I would request this committee that for a common person like me, arranging for a contractor for a heritage property is a very tough task. It's not easy to find a reputed person who could handle this job. So I'm still like, you know, like I'm not blaming the contractors, but the situation is dealing with the contractors, it's not easy. So they would give a quote, they would come, and then, you know, I made like dozens of calls, and then that person is not traceable. He's given the quotation, and then I'm running around the other person. They message, okay, they'll come, they don't come. So it's been going on like that. And it was my suggestion to Patrick as well that, you know, I might suggest that, you know, if the Heritage Committee should be having some list of contractors reputed that could help us, honestly. And I was so eager to get this job done. And I've been calling Patrick every other day because I was so stressed and I really got sleepless nights. And I honestly, I don't know. I couldn't even find, you know, how to find out the brick contractors. So I made so many calls, and if somebody knows any brick contract, and, you know, they don't all, everybody doesn't do this kind of work, restoration work. So, and if somebody I found, they would say, oh, they are booked until next year. I found one company that was Stonebridge last year, and they were reputed. I checked their reviews. They were the only ones who would do this type of work. And they said that they are booked until next year, like September 2021. So there are certain things that's completely out of my control. I could not do it, even though I tried my best. Yeah. So I would request that, you know, if it's possible, you should have a guidance of contractors, for the contractors that people like me can approach. And it was really difficult for me to arrange. And still right now, the two contractors that I'm able to find, and they've issued the quotations, I don't know when they flip or when they change till the time this permit is issued, honestly. So this is how the contractor situation is outside. So okay. I'm still very scared. That. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
That's very valuable input. Thank you.
Okay, I want to give some other members. Does any other member of the committee have a question for the delegation? I have one brief one. I noticed in your application that the work's going to be done with a lime-based mortar. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what they've mentioned. Yeah, I conveyed whatever questions I was asked. So
Yeah.
I requested them and they have answered all the questions, yes.
Yeah, good, because that's something that often gets overlooked with heritage buildings is they don't use lime-based mortars, and that causes more damage to the building. So I'm sorry that this has been so stressful for you over the past year, and hopefully we can do something here to make it a little less stressful for you tonight.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So with that, do staff have a presentation for this one? Yeah, sorry, I had scrolled up down too far in my agenda. Patrick, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to start my presentation. Again, thank you, Chair. Patrick Wisser, Planner Long Range Planning. And this is my presentation for Heritage Permit Application HA0421 and the associated Heritage Grant Application HG0221, both for 176 Wellington Street. So 176 Wellington Street is designated individually under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. It's designated by bylaw 14892. It is a Brantford cottage in buff yellow brick. We can see some tracery and details in the front porch and a Lancet Gothic window in the front gable. So the property is located near the corner of Alfred Street and Wellington Street. It's on the north side of Wellington Street. So as indicated by the applicant, the purpose of their application and their grant request is to help with repointing work and repair of damaged and missing bricks at various locations around the dwelling. So in this case, I have a series of the photos provided by the applicant and one of their contractors. Different types of repointing and replacement work are proposed, just depends on the specific location. So the photo on the left just shows where a cracked brick exists in the wall and mortar has been missing under the window. Again, sections of mortar deteriorating. We can see that the bricks are stained just from soot and over 100 years of being exposed to the elements, but the buff brick is what the building is built out of. So in various places over windows and below windows, we see evidence of step cracks that need repointing, and that's just where the mortar and cracks occur following the mortar joints. Under the window, we see a crack forming straight down below the windowsill and following the edge of brick and mortar. Brick spalling has occurred near the foundation, near grade. We see more brick damage and mortar loss. We also see damage and repointing required near downspout locations. So in the center photo here, the mason indicated, based on their review, about 7 bricks would need to be removed and replaced. More evidence of step crack repointing below windowsill and above a doorway and below the eaves. Again, just through age, this is the mortar that's been wearing away. So the applicant provided 2 quotes for the work. These are required as part of the grant program. And so we review the costs provided, the amount before tax. And since the grant program provides 50% coverage of the eligible costs, we take a lower amount, which is $6,400. 50% of that is $3,200. Maximum grant through the program is $5,000, and that would then require that the eligible costs are $10,000 more. Based on the quotes provided, all the work is eligible, so staff recommend approval, but note that for the program, the grant would be $3,200. So because this is 2 applications, we're dealing with 2 recommendations before the committee. Ultimately, for the grant, staff will be making a recommendation to council, and we will be recommending that council approve the grant. At this stage, our recommendation to the committee is that the heritage permit application, which is delegated approval to the Brantford Heritage Committee, is that the permit be approved. And that's in accordance with the details provided by the applicant. And then We also have the opportunity for the Brantford Heritage Committee to provide comments that will be included in staff's future report to Committee of the Whole regarding Heritage Grant Program application HG0221. And sorry, just to confirm, so the applicant's quotes did specify a lime-based mortar. Staff followed up, requested confirmation of the bricks and mortar to be used, and the specifications provided were for a matching yellow brick. And then the mortar was a product actually seen with a previous application, King 116 cream mortar that has case studies for use on historic properties. And those are specified for this repointing work. So that is in keeping with the recommendations and Parks Canada standards and guidelines for the conservation of historic places, their guidelines for masonry repairs. So for those reasons, staff are recommending approval of the heritage permit application by the Brantford Heritage Committee, and will be recommending approval of the heritage grant. We believe that the proposed work appropriately and directly restores and repairs 176 Wellington Street. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions from the Heritage Committee.
Okay, any questions for Patrick? Councillor Wall, I see your hand raised.
Thank you, Nathan. 3 questions. First question. From the presentation, it was told, I inferred that the delegate was made to wait an extended period of time. Do we know how long that was?
So through the chair, the applicant originally contacted staff in the fall of 2020. At the time, talking to the applicant, she had trouble retaining the 2 masons to provide the 2 quotes required for the grant program. We were also getting into the winter. Because this is a situation with a joint application, a heritage permit and a grant, it's simplest if they're packaged together. So the applicant was advised to just defer submission until they were able to get the 2 quotes. That way the permit and the grant could be processed at the same time. And then it was just I think in May, where I was contacted again by the applicant to restart the process. Winter's a bad time for repointing because the temperature can affect the way the mortar sets, and then that unfortunately would cause problems with the actual integrity of the repairs. So the applicant was just advised to wait until better weather for the repairs to occur.
Okay, so that kind of answers my second question. Then right on to the third question. The only thing that I'm familiar with the city provides like a list of certified contractors is for the lead pipe replacement program that we currently have, where if you want to be eligible for the city's grant, you have to use particular contractors. I think that's the case anyway, to the best of my understanding. Are we planning on doing something similar for the Heritage Committee for heritage-based repairs? And I understand that's a little bit outside of the scope, but it was a concern directly brought by the delegation.
Through the chair, I'm not familiar with the list used for the lead pipe replacement program. I would have to speak to staff and water services just about the nature. I know that municipalities are prohibited by the Municipal Act from bonusing industrial or corporate organizations. So we always need to be careful if we're recommending services that there's no conflict of interest for the city or that we don't run afoul of the Municipal Act. I can look into how the process
is it
works.
Possible to request maybe for our next Heritage Committee meeting, just because I think that, again, not to speak out of turn here, but if this Heritage Committee is going to be saying to people that they have to do a certain type of work to a certain type of quality, we should at least be able to provide references to people who are doing that. You know what I mean? If you could report back on it, as long as the rest of the committee is okay with that, I would appreciate that. And thank you.
I know, I believe this was raised a while ago. And a while ago, I mean, when I was fairly new to the committee, I want to say as well. And I believe that we received a fairly similar answer. And I'm also not aware of any other municipalities that recommend contractors for heritage buildings, at least that I'm aware of. That doesn't mean that there might not be some out there, but that may be helpful. Does any other member of the committee have any questions for staff on this application?
Nathan, if I may, I just see that my manager, Alan, has his hand raised. He would like to add something.
Oh, sorry, Alan. Hop on. Let me know that you're there.
Oh, no problem. Is everyone able to hear me?
Yeah.
I just wanted to suggest, Councillor Wall, that maybe that could be packaged like this issue with the report that we'll be bringing back before the end of the year about this Heritage Grant Program. And we're looking at, ways to improve it. So this might be one of the issues we can look at there. And then we can have a deeper dive into that question about, whether we really can have a list without getting into, those municipal conflict issues that Patrick mentioned. So
Whatever you need, I support that 100%.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other member have questions for Patrick? No? Okay. So we need a mover and a seconder for the motion that it be approved, along with any comments that we want about the Heritage Grant Program. So I'll get a mover for all of that, and we can talk about in the discussion if there are any comments that we want to add. Okay. So a mover for approval and comments. Councillor Wall, seconder. Oh, Dan Brown. Any discussion? Any discussion on the approval or any comments that people want included? Lise, are you there?
Well, can I jump in?
Oh, yep, go ahead, Ed.
It's the same thing I mentioned last month. I'm still wondering why this is a set budget. Can't staff just make this decision very quickly? I mean, this is a nice report, but I'm also looking at my public sector efficiency hat. This is $3,000. The report probably costs more than $3,000 to produce. And I'm just wondering that when they redo this program, take it to council for $3,000 to approve. So that's all. It's about the design of the system.
Okay, so that this is the program as it exists now. We cannot change the program, but your comment was noted last time by staff, and it will be carried forward into the review. Okay. Any other members of the committee have anything that they wish to add? I would. Oh, Tamara, go ahead.
So I'm just stepping back on the comment about this work can't be done during the winter months. I just want to make sure that the funds will be released soon enough for her to be able to get these contractors in place and get it done before another winter passes, I guess. Urgency.
Yeah. Okay. I would like to include a comment that we support the Heritage Grant, the Heritage Grant Program application. The Heritage Committee strongly supports it. Does anyone have any comment or discussion around that? No? Okay. Any other comments that we want to add before I call it to a vote? Councillor Wall?
Sure, I'll say it because it's been going around in my head. I appreciate the applicant going through the whole process and taking the time to restore a heritage building in our community. That's what the grant is for. And, if you look around town, there's plenty of work being done on heritage buildings that may not be going through the proper channels and proper procedures. And it's nice to see somebody take the time, even though it's difficult, even though it's hard, and even though it's frustrating. And we are going to use this data and information to make the process better for everybody. So if you're still here, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wall. Okay, I think we're ready to call the question then. All those in favor? Okay, hands down. All those opposed? And Lise, can I have your vote? please.
In favor.
Okay, thank you. I declare the motion approved. So we will now move on to item 4.3. This is a heritage impact studies for 247 and 253 West Street. I will call upon Carla Parslow and Mark Villmer to speak to this application. Just a reminder, like everyone else, you have 10 minutes for your presentation, inclusive of questions of the committee.
Hello all, I believe I'm live now. So good evening. My name is Mark Villmer from SRM Architects. I'm a managing partner, and I'm pleased to introduce this project to you. We have a presentation, a slideshow presentation. I believe I can share my screen now. I don't have the ability to do so.
I'm just going to pull it up for you right now. Hold on. You just let me know when you want to move on to the next slide.
Sounds good. All right, I'll keep it quick. Thank you. All right. So yes, thank you again. So I'm Mark Villmer from SRM Architects, and we're pleased to introduce this project. I'll throw it to Carla at a point in the presentation as she'll work through the actual criteria for determining, cultural heritage and value and other interests for the two properties that are in question right now for these reports. Next slide, please. Okay, so thank you. So I'm going to quickly introduce the project to you, just so you have a little bit of background, and then the key part of this presentation will be the criteria for determining the property for the cultural heritage value and interest for both buildings, 247 West Street and 253 West Street. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so CSM is the developer, and they've hired us to proceed with an OPA ZBA application to seek the approval for a 8-story building consisting of 70 units. The development consists of some underground parking, at-grade parking, and ultimately we're seeking for a higher density usage that the site currently has. And this proposed project is on the merged sites where you would have the previously occupied 247 and 253 buildings. Next slide, please. So this slide identifies the new location for the proposed development as a multi-unit residential building on the site. Next slide, please. So these are the two buildings in question. So we have two separate cultural heritage impact assessments done, one for each building. So on the left is 253 West Street, and on the right is 247 West Street. The sites don't have a whole lot of vegetation on them, and the total lot area is roughly 0.325 hectares once amalgamated. And I'm not certain if they've merged under title officially right now, but that would certainly be what would happen for the project. I should mention there's also some topography on the site. It slopes down rather aggressively, the high point being West Street. And so that natural grade is being used as part of the proposed development. Next slide, please. So this is an existing condition site plan indicating 253 West Street at the north end of the site here, the top, and the bottom portion is 247 West Street. So these are the two buildings that would be proposed to be removed as part of freeing up the land to do this new development. Next slide, please. Thank you. So at this point, I'll introduce Carla Parslow from PHC Group. She is the heritage consultant for this project, and will walk you through the next steps of this presentation, please.
Thanks, Mark. All right, so Parslow Heritage Consultancy Inc. was contracted to perform a cultural heritage impact assessment for both properties. We did assess both buildings based on the Ontario Heritage Act, OREG 0906, to determine the cultural heritage value. Next slide, please. So for 247 West Street, the first, we we looked at the physical value, the historical or associative value, as well as the contextual value. And looking at the physical or design value of this this particular property, we note that this is an Edwardian classism architectural style, that it was quite prominent during the early 20th century and is well represented throughout Southern Ontario. This particular structure was constructed in 1915 based on land records, and therefore is not really an early or a representative example of the Edward classicism that is seen throughout Ontario. As additionally, there's no specific kind of craftsmanship within the house, and does not and the house does not display any high degree of scientific achievement or construction. The property historical value, despite our work research, and mind you, we weren't able to go into the Ontario archives because they're closed due to COVID, but based on what research we could glean from being able to contact archives and history in Brantford, as well as online, we found that there really was no direct historical association with a theme or a belief or a person that was significant to this community. And we could also not really find any great information that yielded an understanding of the community of West Street. Next slide, please. As well, it didn't really, there was no architect that was associated with the building of this house, so we figure it was probably one that came from a pattern. And the property also has no contextual value as well either, because it is not necessarily important for defining, sorry, I'm just moving something here, for defining or maintaining or supporting the character of the area, because the area is not necessarily as it was before. We're not talking, it's not in a heritage district. And as well, it does not visually functionally or sorry, physically functionally, visually or historically linked to any surroundings, and it is no longer a landmark, or it is not a landmark, does not serve as a landmark, excuse me. Next slide, please. In looking at 253 West Street, it is an Italianate example. However, it is actually a poor example of one. There are several very good examples. Actually, we saw one earlier today in 4.1 of a good example of an Italianate structure. And again, there is no specific high degree of craftsmanship the craftsmanship is very typical for the time it was built. And there is no high degree of technical or scientific achievement. Again, with this property, as with the other one, the historical research did not indicate any kind of direct link between the property and any theme, belief, or person or activity that was significant to the community. And it also did not necessarily contribute to the understanding of the community or culture. Please note too that this structure, as well as the other one, has also been heavily modified, and the grade of the property shows considerable modifications. Next slide, please. Just to carry on, as with the property at 247, 253 also is not associated with any architect, and it is suspected that it was built by a local builder using a pattern book typical for the area. And finally, from a contextual, for contextual value, the residents in the property, they're not important in defining or maintaining supporting the character of the area. And we're saying this just because there's many more structures located on the street from this time period that are probably much better examples. While the property is historically linked to its surroundings based on its depiction in the bird's eye image, the surrounding areas have changed so much so that, with the commercial area to the south and apartment buildings to the north, that it no longer physically physically is linked to its surroundings. And finally, the residence does not serve as a local landmark. And these are, I guess, just some showing some of the immediate surroundings to show you what it looks like. So noting on the left here, we have the apartment building shown on site. And then on the right, we do see here the view of West Street and Burnley Street intersection with the shopping plaza on the corner as well too. Next slide. Mark, is this for you?
Yeah, so thank you, Carla. Yeah, as soon as the new building shows up, that's where I pop in. Yeah, no, thank you, Carla. This is just to show in terms of our relation of the new proposed development in relation to the existing context. So this is just more of a help you orient yourself where the new building would be vis-a-vis the old building locations. Next slide, please. Thank you for your time.
Okay, perfect. You used the time right to 10 minutes. So there's no time left for questions. So we will go to the staff report. Patrick, there it is.
And just to clarify, this is one of the two items on the agenda that doesn't have
sorry.
Report. This and item 4.4 not have.
Yes. Thank you for that. I forgot that. Okay. So we now are at the point where we need to include comments for these studies. Can someone move that we get comments on the floor? Tamara, a seconder for comments. Dan? Okay. Any discussion, any comments that people want included about these two applications? Dan, go ahead.
So eventually with this type of project, there comes demolition permits after that. Obviously, I think that there's not a lot of heritage with the properties, but all the materials that come from the demolition of the property, I know this is a bigger question than just this, but what happens other than with the landfill, with the bricks or other materials from the houses that could be reused within the city, say, rather than selling them off to architectural salvage yards or stuff like that? I think it's a bigger question that I'd like to talk about further, but.
Any other comments that people want to talk about? I do have to bring in staff here because I have a question about this because and I'm upset that we didn't get enough time to ask questions of the applicant because 253 West Street was on our B list of properties for our heritage register. That it was identified. And so I don't know if we have an assessment of 253 West that was done with the consultant work, or if Patrick can answer that question.
Thank you, Chair. So through the Heritage Register project, they sort of cast a wide net, first reviewing properties on our heritage inventory and getting any input from the community where they felt there was a property of value, but they evaluated quite a large number of properties. So we do have property information sheets. I can share the example for this property. These were not provided to the applicant because they were not received from the consultant, ASI, when this application came in for pre-consultation. We didn't have the details on the property, and until we received this submission, we didn't know where the project was. So it's something we will be providing to this applicant through our comments, and it's something we are providing to future applicants. Like when we have current pre-consultations, they do get these property information sheets. I can share sheet. As you can see, it provides the address, the area of the city, its development theme and architectural style. It provides a date of construction that's estimated based on our heritage inventory and the impact date. Provides an identifying image, and then it just identifies which criteria were met. So this property was identified as the group for a property which merits listing, but through Group B, because it predates the incorporation of the city of Brantford, and it represents, it's a representative example of its architectural style. So in the opinion of ASI, which was the consultant used for the Heritage Register project, they felt that this property was representative of the Italianate architectural style.
Okay, thank you for that information. This is the reason why I brought this up, because I knew it was in our Heritage Register report for City Area 14, which was East Ward. And it fits within the town years development from 1829 to 1876 that include themes of housing and institutional use in this area. I also wrote down that it predates the incorporation of the city of Brantford, which was one of our criteria that we wanted. And Regulation 906 does say that an early example of a building is a criteria for cultural heritage value. So this was identified a while ago. So I just want to highlight that for people. Patrick, can you please stop sharing your screen so that I can see everyone else? Thank you, because I know that there are some other hands up and questions. Tamara?
Yeah, I was going to ask too, I guess that premise, it appears to be that it's already been broken up into several apartments on the inside. So I'm guessing that the inside doesn't maintain any of its original woodwork or structure. Like it looks like a well-built home from the original era. So just wondering if there's anything remaining on the inside that could be salvaged as well, like just going forward.
Okay. There was included in the heritage impact study some photos of the interior, which do have some of those things. Sorry, maybe I wasn't catching what you were saying there.
All right, can I jump?
Sorry, Tamara, did you have something?
Yeah. So the only, like I guess the staircase, there's nothing else beyond that. Maybe there is something that could be salvaged. Same as the brickwork, right? Like it's there's definitely salvage available here.
Okay, Ed, sorry, you wanted to jump in and add something.
No, just to clarify, am I missing something in the report I'm reading? Because everything I'm reading is about 247 West Street. Is there something about 253 West Street as well?
After 247 is talked about, keep scrolling, and right after that is 253. They're not included in one report. They're two separate reports.
Okay.
All right. Sorry, Councillor Wall, do you want to ask something? And we might be able to get a clarification from clerks on that.
You had alluded to wanting to ask the delegate more questions. So the question, I guess, is more towards the chair. Are we not within our ability to be able to waive the rules and give the delegate more time so we could ask the delegate questions?
Can we do that after the presentation has happened?
I feel like with a motion to waive the rules, we can do almost anything we want.
Through the chair, so you can pass a motion to waive the rules and procedural bylaw that stipulate for 10-minute presentation to bring the delegate back for another 10 minutes if that's what you'd like to do. It just requires a 2/3 vote.
Okay. Councillor Wall, would you like to make such a motion?
If the committee has questions of the delegate, it would be my pleasure to do so. seeking a seconder.
Is there a seconder, Tamara? Any questions about that or any discussion on the motion to waive the rules? Everyone's clear what we're voting on? Okay. It needs 2/3 majority in order to pass. So all those in favor of the motion to waive the rules? Hands down. Lise, would you care to indicate your vote, please? Lise, go ahead. In favor? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So I think I need to move the actual motion now. So I move the motion to waive the procedural bylaw to give the delegation. Do I have to do it twice, Melanie?
No, we did that.
Sorry, that's only at Council and Cal for your.
All right, forgive me for mixing.
No worries.
Thank
okay.
you,
I'll bring them back in. Just give me 2 seconds.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I guess this is the time to start a question list then. Does anyone else want to ask questions of the delegate before I ask some questions? No? Councillor Wall, go ahead.
Sure, why not? I'll ask what everyone was saying. Were you privy to the conversation we were just having a few minutes ago?
Mark, you're on mute, sorry.
That's quite all right. Absolutely. Well, I heard the questions, the unused materials at demolition stage and the subsequent conversation about some internal history on the building.
Would you be willing to provide some commentary and perhaps some answers to the best of your ability on those comments and questions?
Certainly, through you, Chair. Dan Brown, your questions and comments. So actually, I think you were right on point when you asked about what happens to the materials. If it is indeed a delisted project and there's no requirement to integrate materials into the site, then it's up to the client and to the contractor as part of their agreement what they do with the materials. Oftentimes, I know part of a demolition contract, it'll be part of the contract where they'll keep some materials that they see of value. We get involved when there's certain heritage pieces that we want to integrate into the site, and that's been done in the past. And usually it's be built into some retaining walls or signage so that we can still showcase some of the relevant, and it's oftentimes not a material like wood, it'd be a reused stone, masonry, limestone as part of the future development. But that's the only case that our office would get involved in some situation like that. To answer the subsequent question, it was maybe not so much a question as much it was a clarification that Chair Nathan, you mentioned in terms of the information that you had. I'd have to defer to my colleague Carla on any heritage aspects of the building 253 or 247 in question.
Right. Yeah. No. And as per the HIA, we did state that the building was constructed in 1875. So yes, it is an earlier construction for this one property.
Okay, well, it's on the 1852 map as well. So,
okay, because we didn't. Okay.
I would suggest those dates are not perfect.
I would suggest that the maps dates are perfect. So what we have done though is that we've gone through the land registry as well too, just to sort of to see where we're at, and we know that the patent, the Crown gave or the Crown had issued James Beale the property back in February of 1859. So that is sort of the earliest that we're finding that we see of there being someone on the property.
Yeah. Well, it's on the 1852 map.
Absolutely.
There
But
are
is this the same house from 1852 though? That is something that you need to understand. That the bird's eye view does not exactly depict an Italianate house. Matter of fact, it almost looks like it's you know, a much smaller, maybe even wood house at this point.
okay. And does anyone have any other questions for the delegation? Lise, do you have any questions?
May I say one more thing or no?
Yep, go ahead.
Oh, okay, thanks. I just wanted to say too that while ASI has noted it as part of their list for potential heritage properties, please do keep in mind that their list did not include going through the land registry for that exact property or looking up the actual historic information for that particular property. And they only took one photo. Usually it's at the front of the property from the property line, whereas we have actually gone through and done full photo documentation, both internal and external of the property.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so going back to comments. We've talked about a bunch of things. Do we want to formalize any comments on this application that people want to forward? Tamara?
So just based on their own recommendations in their own report on page 104 of 231, it is recommended that any architectural elements be salvaged from 247 West Street and be salvaged in these materials be made available to current owners of listed and designated homes in the city of Brantford. I would like to see a small stockpile of bricks so that, similar homes to the one on Chatham Street can be economically or feasibly repaired with similar brick, like those kinds of architectural elements, I guess, that if we had a small stockpile or some ability to do that, or if they would donate some of those materials back to the city, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Okay. That's a good comment. Rob, would you like to add something?
Yes, well, it appears that between the cultural heritage impact statement and our own heritage registry, there seems to be somewhat of a conflict as opposed to cultural heritage value. So I think as part of the comments that go forward to council, that should be noted, that we have two reports on the same property that are saying two different things, essentially, as to is this property of heritage value to the city of Brantford or not.
Okay. Ed, did you have something to add there? Or you're just not on mute?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to give you the opportunity because I thought you were trying to add something. Yes, I would also like to include something about the property 253 West Street being identified in the Heritage Register report on page C18 as a potential candidate for our Heritage Register. That is the comment that I would like included. So are there any other comments?
Nathan?
Yeah.
Hi, I have a comment.
Oh, sorry, Lise, go ahead.
Yeah, it's Lise Marie Jansen. Okay, sorry. In the final pages, I believe, where it's under recommendations for the heritage impact assessment, it's mentioned twice. The recommendation and conclusion to that the structure, and I'm not sure if this is both 257 or just 247. Oh, sorry, I'm not sure if it's both 253 West as well, right now I have 257 in front of me, but if this is for it, because their reports are very similar, it mentions that the property should be removed from the City of Brantford Heritage Inventory. I have concerns with that. This is mentioned twice. I have been on this Heritage Committee since 2011, and I've been following this Heritage Committee since our Heritage Inventory was created, I believe, in the 90s. I don't think we've ever had anything recommended to remove anything from our Heritage Inventory. I understand if it was on the Heritage Register, that would be a different ask, and it's an official document. But the Heritage Inventory is a public document. It's a database. It's research that went on for years. And I'm not comfortable, and I hope that's reflected in the minutes. I'm not comfortable. I don't know that this Heritage Committee currently is. I know previous members wouldn't be. I know people in the public wouldn't be comfortable if we were to start removing things from our Heritage Inventory when we have had consultants in regards to a Heritage Register that didn't recommend removing anything there public. They only removed, say, duplicate items or whatever that was kind of redundant. So I have a high concern for this, because if this goes through, I think it sets a precedent for other things, especially because this property is listed as consideration for, I believe it was East Ward on the B list of properties, and that there's conflicting research. So I hope those concerns are reflected, because I'm highly concerned that this is mentioned twice, that this property, I believe it is as well, should be removed from the Heritage Inventory. And that's something we've, I don't think, ever been seeing in a document that recommended anything to do with anything on this committee as far as I've been here, or in the 90s even.
Yeah, I think that's a good comment to add in there, at least, that the properties not be removed from the Heritage Inventory. So, and any other members before I ask our fantastic clerk to bring up our comments so that everyone can see them? No? Okay. Can I ask you to do that for us?
Question for you, Nathan. Sorry, just to clarify your comment. That 250 West Street be added. I'm not too sure what it was in reference to the Heritage Register, but I wasn't sure what the exact point was.
Okay. That 253 West Street was recognized in the Heritage Register final report on page C-18 as being a candidate for our Heritage Register and fits within the themes for City Area 14, East Ward, North Village. Is that better?
Give me 1 second. I'm just cleaning up a little bit, and then I'll display it.
Perfect, thank you. And once you have it up, I will read it for Lisa's benefit, as she's on the phone and has to hear, she can't see it.
Again, the wording might need to be tweaked for yours. I think I got it all, but I just want to make sure that I've reported correctly. I think I'm missing something before East Ward.
It's within the character for East Ward and East Ward North Village.
East Ward North Village. Okay, I'll add that in.
Yeah, that's it. So I'll read the whole thing for Lise, that the following comments regarding the heritage impact studies for 247 West Street and 253 West Street be forwarded to staff. The first comment is that consideration be given to donating some materials from the demolished properties back to the city of Brantford so that they can be reallocated to other heritage properties to be utilized in restorations and repairs. That it is noted that 253 West Street was recognized in the Heritage Register final report on page C18 as being a candidate for the Heritage Register and fits within the character for East Ward. And the third comment, that reconsideration be given for removing 253 West Street from the heritage inventory. Okay, so is everyone clear what we are voting on? If you're not, shout out now. Okay, so I'll call the question then on the motion. All those in favor? Hands down. All those opposed? Nobody. Lise, would you care to indicate your vote?
This is voting on the comments, correct?
Correct.
In favor.
Thank you. I declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. We will now move on to our last item for consideration, item 4.4. This is a heritage impact assessment for 60 Market Street. I would call upon Kaylee Robbins, Drew Hauser, Edward Thomas, John Serrera, Ruchita Gupta, and Martin Quampore to speak to the item. I hope I got all those names right. You will have 10 minutes inclusive of questions for your presentation. Do we have the applicant here? Oh, there we go.
Hi there. Hi, my name is Kaylee Robbins. I'm here on behalf of the owner of 60 Market Street. And as you are aware, we are here, there's a handful of us, so I'll just introduce them again. We have Edward Thomas of SRN Architects. He's the architect for this project. We have Ruchita Gupta, the owner of the lands, as well as Drew Hauser at McCallum Sather. And I believe John is also on the line from McCallum Sather. And then my colleague Martin Corcapone, Senior Associate at Weston. And I'm a planner at Weston Consulting. Apologies if I forgot to mention that. So I don't have a presentation, but if you have the Heritage Impact Assessment in front of you, I can advise of pages, or if you don't mind, I can share my screen. I have it in front of me here. If you don't mind, can I share my screen?
Sorry, I'm just pulling up your document right now. If you just want to let me know which page numbers you want, I can
perfect. Yep, no problem. So just page 20, I believe. So I'll just be providing a bit of an overview of the proposed development, and then I will pass it over to Drew, who's the heritage consultant and the expert in this field. So as you see here, and if you just to zoom in a little, just I guess to the site plan, and yeah, that's perfect there. So the existing or the heritage structure we're here to talk about is on the left side of your screen. It's just along Market Street there. And then the proposed development is actually just on the opposite side along Clarence Street South. So we are proposing a 8-story mixed-use building. So it has commercial uses, commercial units at grade along Clarence Street, to activate that streetscape. And then it also has about 118 residential units. So you can see there also surface parking spots along the southern and interior to the proposed development, both to the rear of essentially both structures, the heritage and the proposed development. And then the accesses are provided from Erie Ave as well as Clarence Street South. And then if you go to, I believe it's just the next couple slides. I believe it is, sorry, page 23, if you don't mind. It's just an elevation of the building. There we are. So this is the proposed building. The base, there's a 3-story podium just to try to be in line with the surrounding built form and surrounding heights. And then the next 3 stories are of a different different material, just to make it a bit more slender with the dark colors. And then you have the lighter gray brick color on the top 2 stories, just to reduce the massing impacts of the 8-story building. So that's essentially what we are proposing with this development. I can now pass it over to Drew, who can speak to his report. Thanks.
Hi, sorry. My name is John. I'm going to be speaking on behalf of McCallum Sather. Drew is actually not available. So I just wanted to sort of preface everything by saying that the heritage resource in question is actually going to be completely retained in situ. So we sort of consider this as an adjacent heritage resource to the development. So we prepared the heritage impact assessment and sort of recommended a few mitigation efforts for the building in question. So as far as like the new development is concerned. So perhaps I should also mention that the developers had explored options to tear down the heritage resource. And ultimately it was decided that that wasn't the best way to go. Potentially because, you're sort of, you're removing a pretty significant piece of Brantford's heritage and history, especially considering its relationship to the Toronto, Buffalo, Hamilton Railway, and the fact that it's one of the only 2 remaining train stations left in Brantford. So maybe I'll just go to our recommendations for the development. If you could scroll down. Yeah, just a little bit further. Yeah. Oh, just go back up one there. Yeah. So as far as our strategy is to conserve the heritage resource, we have recommended that the developer consult with the structural engineer, who is a Canadian Associate of Heritage Professionals member, to comment on any potential vibration impacts resulting from the adjacent construction. So we don't want any sort of vibration damage done to the heritage resource. And a structural engineer who knows specifically about heritage buildings would be probably the right way to go here. It's also recommended that a heighted podium show a deference to the scale of the adjacent resource and provide transition and height from the existing station to the towers. So the proposed design does take this into consideration, and it actually shows deference to the heritage resource and provides a good transition between the 2 buildings. So horizontal datum lines and levels of existing station building have a visual continuity and connection with those of the podium facade and composition. This sort of hasn't really been addressed, but as we move through the design process, we probably can address this. Materiality as well is another thing that we're looking at sort of more in depth. Landscaping has been addressed. So the existing rail corridor, to use that as sort of like an access or path of rail line for pedestrian circulation is something that should be considered, as well as signage to commemorate the site's history. And what we have found ultimately is that there aren't any major impacts to the heritage attributes identified by the statement or the intention to designate that has been prepared by the city. So those are sort of our recommendations in like a high level sort of way. We are going to be likely developing a conservation plan with regards to the restoration of the heritage resource, but that will come subsequent to the heritage impact assessment approval.
Okay.
Thanks, Drew. Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just see my colleague Martin has his hand up. I think you'd like to add something.
Thank you, Kaylee. Hi, everybody. It's Martin Parkcombe here, Senior Associate with Weston Consulting. I think my colleagues here adequately cover the status of our application. But I just wanted to highlight one element that I think might be helpful for the community to understand. If you recall the site plan, there's a fairly large distance between the proposed 8-story building and the retained heritage structure. And that was intentional because there is a second phase of development that will occur in the future. So we pushed the first phase as far away as possible to clearance. But the intention is that at some point in the future, we have a phase 2 building that would better respond to the heritage structure, and all of that above grade parking that you saw in the plan would be removed, and we integrate a second building that would complement the existing structure over time. At this time, we don't know when that will be, but I just wanted to just highlight that factor because having that open parking lot area is not the long-term vision for the property. And the intent is to utilize that building within the proposed as part of the developments, either as amenity space or commercial. So we are looking at adaptive reuse of that structure. So those are my comments. I'm not quite sure if we hit our 10-minute marker. If we have, I apologize for going over, but that would be helpful for community to understand the long-term vision of the property. Thank you.
Yeah, basically you're at the 10-minute mark. I do want to see if, or test if there are any people who have any questions for the applicant. Any members of the committee have any questions? Okay, we have a couple. Can we do the same thing that we did the last time then, waive the rules to allow time for questions?
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Wall, seconder. Tamara, any discussion about that? No? Okay, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Okay, Lise, can you please indicate your vote?
In favor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we had a bunch of people. Ed, I think I acknowledged you first, so go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to get a grasp of, we're talking about an old railway station, yet there's nothing in this document that actually talks about that. Is there any plans at all for what is envisioned for that? Other than some vague notion of something in the future? Do we have anything at all?
Applicant, would you like opportunity to respond to that in 30 seconds?
Maybe I'll try and tackle this one through you, Mr. Chair. The intent is to utilize that building as part of the amenity space or commercial component for the long-term use of the property. At this time, we don't know exactly what that use might be, but it's not going to sit there vacant and not used. It will be incorporated to some degree. And as we move forward with the future phase 2 plan, the use of that structure will be better defined, and we will be back at this committee to understand how that will be integrated to the future development plan. Let's hope that answers the question.
Okay. Ed, did you have any other question to add? No? Okay. I think I saw Tamara's hand next.
Yeah, I guess sort of piggybacking a little bit on Ed's question, same sort of thing. I see that it's been boarded up and there's been some protection or fencing around the train station. Yeah, I guess I don't want to see a development going on, kind of being treated like a severed parcel and being left to slowly dilapidate too. I would rather see something in your plans that's related to this development directly. It could be an expensive venture if this building turns into an apartment or a condo building and they're responsible for maintaining a deteriorating, very important historical structure as well.
With the applicant.
Yeah, so is there, yeah, I guess maybe that's exactly like I'm yet with Ed. I want to see something that is a plan in place for that building.
Would the applicant care to respond to that before we move to the next person?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can appreciate that comment. We also want to see the building preserved as early as possible and not left to deteriorate over time. But at this time, I don't have any real direction as to when that will occur. We do know it will occur, and my colleague identified a conservation plan that will be created to identify how this will be maintained long term. But unfortunately, I don't have a direct answer for you at the time, but I can certainly work on figuring out how to answer that question a bit better before this project is finalized.
Okay, anything else, Tamara, before I move on? No? Okay, Rob, go ahead.
Yes, could you let us know what has currently been done to the train station to ensure that it is protected during this time gap before it is dealt with? Because obviously you're looking at doing your new development first while it is left to the side. So could you tell us what has been done and what your plan is to protect that until such a time as you do develop it?
To you, Mr. Chair, I'm not entirely sure what's been done to date. I may defer to my colleague who may have a better understanding of the current condition of the structure and what has been done at all to the building. But in terms of the long-term plan, again, that's going to it's going to flush out through the site plan process that we're currently in. And unfortunately, again, I don't have an answer for you, but from what I'm hearing from the committee, that you do want to have more of just a vague answer. So I think what I can do is commit to coming back or providing through staff a better response, and that can be put on record in terms of how we're going to be maintaining that structure in between the phase 1 development and the call to phase 2.
Anything else from you, Rob?
Yes, in connection with that, thank you very much. In your report that you would eventually bring back to staff and eventually to this committee, could you report on the current condition of the structure, any gaps or deficiencies in it, and how you plan to address them until such a point that you would conserve it?
Okay. Would the applicant like to respond to that, or?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair, I didn't know if that was a question directed towards me. Certainly, I don't know if John wants to provide any comment around that, but yes, we can certainly provide a bit more detail.
Okay.
Yes, I mean we will complete like a detailed audit of the current condition of the building. It hasn't actually gotten to that point just yet. The purpose of the HIA was to, analyze the potential impacts on the heritage with the new development. So we hadn't gone into details specifically about the condition of the building as it sits in situ at the moment, but that will be part of the next phase of the process.
Okay, thank you. I have a question, but I want to see if Lise has anything before I ask any questions.
My mom.
Sorry?
Hello?
Yeah?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay. I didn't know if this question would go to them or to staff, but it was mention of a potential conservation plan in regards to the actual train station building. I was just wondering if that's possible, that's something that, along with the detailed audit of the condition of the building, if that's something that could come back to Heritage Committee at a later time, so that we could, if there was any questions or anything like that, actually be able to ask that of someone who could update us on that at the time. Also, if I can say one more thing, I think in the report somewhere it mentioned about the archaeology and how sometimes that's seen as maybe not quite a concern if it's a property that's been developed or has parking, but in Brantford, we have found sometimes there is still archaeology that is important significance even under that. So if with the new build, you know, archaeology is going to be included in that portion, or go ahead to say.
I'll speak to the conservation plan. Yeah, absolutely. That will be a process with everyone involved, and we will develop a detailed analysis of the building and a detailed plan to conserve it, and everybody will be consulted during that time.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna ask some questions now because I had a couple. The development obviously is going to remove the railroad tracks, correct?
You to chair, correct.
And the railroad, it has part of the context for why there's a train station there as well. So is there, I understand removing them from where the building envelope is going to be, are all of the railroad tracks going to be removed, or is there the possibility that some of them could be conserved next to the railway station in particular?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's a question that we've never had to answer before because it was never really posed to us. Our development plan does not consider the retention of the tracks. The focus has always been the building. So that's where we put our focus. And if you look at our plan, we've got our landscape buffers and access and parking areas that would be in that location. So to answer your question, no, we haven't considered that. I suppose we could look at that as an option, but I would have to defer to my client and our heritage consultant to see how that would work.
Okay, my other question is, it looks, I call it like a carriageway. It looks like it's a roadway that goes under the building, or a portion of the building that provides access to the parking. Is that intended to be along the current rail line where the railway actually is, that you would be able to see through the carriageway to the train station and get all that historic context of the continuity of that?
To you, Mr. Chair, can you be a bit more precise in terms of which, are you on the Clarence side or is it the Market side?
I think it's on the Clarence Street side. It's the road access, and then there's a little thing that goes over top of the roadway, right?
Correct, yes. There would be a portion of the building over top the access from Clarence.
And does that align with the railway or no?
I believe it's just slightly further north of what would be the tracks. Unfortunately, I don't have the tracks identified on the site plan, so it's hard for me to gauge exactly where it would be. But it would be within that parking area, landscapes area on the south side. Whether it lines up with the access, I'm not 100% sure at the moment.
I think it might be helpful to see that and clarify that in the future. My final question or comment is going to be about the choice of the cladding materials on the outside. In the proposal, or what it looks like, it's white and gray and black, and the train station doesn't have any of those colors in it. Is there a way that you could incorporate the coloring of the train station so that it cohesively blends in with the landscape better?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think that is highly feasible. I'll speak for my clients and architects, which I am not, but I would suggest that we could possibly take a look at that. Again, this is a proposal that has a developer involved, and it's ultimately up to them to decide the finishing and materials, but they take guidance from their consultant team. And I believe representative of the developers on the line here who's overhearing the conversation. So I see that Rashida has unmiked or unmuted her mic, so perhaps she would like to answer, but I think we can take a look at how we look at the coloring of the building.
Yes, just to confirm, I'm on here on the behalf of the developer, and we will be able to take a look at the color choice and perhaps change it to better fit the existing train station.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that would definitely help the appearance of the building and make it blend into the landscape there. Okay, and I think we've had a lengthy question section. Does anyone else have any questions before we move into the comment section? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation. So we need a mover and a seconder for the comments motion. Can I have a mover, please? Rob and Tamara looks to be seconding. Comments to be included. Does any member wish to make a comment now that they wish to be added? Rob, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I'm concerned that as part of the impact study, the current condition of the building has not been taken into consideration of the train station. And all responses from the presenters have been that they don't know the current condition and it's not going to be studied or looked at until some point in the future. And so my point is, inadequate protection or a lack of information that's needed to properly accomplish adequate protection is in itself a major heritage impact. And that has not been addressed in this study.
Okay.
Because the deterioration that can potentially happen will impact the building.
Well noted. Thank you very much, Rob. I think I also saw Tamara's hand up.
Sorry, Rob, the same. I was going to say the condition of the station and considerations made for the preservation and the future utilization of the station too. That was what my comment was going to be.
Okay, Ed, go ahead.
I just want to back that up. I was actually pretty amazed reading through this whole document, and there's virtually no talk of the station and what they envision it to do. Like, it's one thing to protect the bricks and mortar, but the building still has to live. And what purpose? I'm just really surprised that there was no comment on this at all. So at the moment, I'm looking at this thinking, nice apartment building, but what has that got to do with the railway station? And I can't, and because what I've been also told about the state, they've had so many renovations in there, it's really hard to tell what is old railway station and what's numerous renovations they've had over the years. So, and I mean, there's just no discussion, or just what Tamara said, same idea that this needs it's like they need to just do a whole new project just on the station and its future, is my point.
Okay. Any other members want to suggest any comments? Okay. Oh, sorry, Rob, your hand went up again? Or was that the hand from before?
Oh, that was me. I would just like to see a comment that the owner and developer be encouraged as soon as possible to do an audit of the train station and report back to staff and through staff to the Heritage Committee as soon as possible, an audit of the building's current condition and what they propose to do to protect that building until such a time as it's redeveloped. And that they do that sooner rather than later.
Okay, I think I might need some clarification on from staff on that. Can we do that, or does that sound like a different motion that we may have to make?
Through your chair, so you can provide those comments to staff, and we will just incorporate them in our comments back to the applicant. So through the site plan, there's often a case where the first round is submitted and various departments identify concerns with the original proposal and then give the applicant an opportunity to address those concerns and resubmit new documents. So
they would be able to do that.
Correct.
Through this process. Okay, perfect. Thank you. I would also like to include a comment about the cladding material being more reflective of the color palette of the train station. That can be included as a comment. Lise, do you have a comment to add, or are you okay? Have we captured everything?
Am I unmuted?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I would just echo the part that you said about, I think a few members said it, about the railway. And even if it's not something that can be retained in full, even if like a small portion of that railway could be considered if it is close to the new development. I'm trying to see from the pictures, I can't quite figure exactly where that is. And if that is in the same area, but if that is something that could be incorporated, like when they talked about in the heritage impact assessment about potential of future photograph or signage, that's something that maybe could connect the new development with the existing old building, even though it's not like directly maybe right beside the building, but still it connects the entire lot as, you know, one property in the future. So maybe that's something to do with what's there. Maybe they could just preserve a little bit of it, even if they had to, I don't know.
So something like the consideration to retain a portion of the railway.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. Christopher, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would also say to use a bit more of the local materials that are in the area, not just about the color per se, but also with the railway as well, with the use of steel or with the use of brick material as well. Bring it a bit more closer to the context of the site.
Yeah, that's a good comment. So if you can somehow include that into my comment, tack it on to the end, the inclusion of steel, potentially of steel to be more reflective of the railroad nature. Rob, sorry, you have one more thing to add?
Yeah, this might be somewhat academic, but just a notation that the former THB railway station would be identified in the Heritage Register as well. So just to make council aware of that and bring it to their attention.
Okay. Councillor Wall, sorry, go ahead.
Just before you call the vote, can we just get that list up on the screen?
Yes, exactly. That was going to be the next thing that I was going to ask for.
Just give me 1 second. I'm just finishing up Rob's question.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I know this takes a much longer time to do over Zoom than it would in a normal in-person meeting. So thank you for your indulgence.
Nathan?
Oh, please, sorry.
Hi, sorry. I don't think you had it in the comments yet. You mentioned something about the carriageway and whether or not that was a sight line that would be maintained with the new build.
Yeah, okay. Tamara is also supporting that. So maybe that's an additional dot that we have to add on.
Yes.
That the carriageway be aligned with the railway. How you doing there, Melanie? We're throwing lots of curveballs at you.
Okay, thanks for bearing with me. Okay, so I think I've captured everything. If anyone wants any revisions, please let me know.
I'll read it for Lise as well, since she can't see it. So the following comments be regarding the heritage impact assessment for 20 Market Street that will be forwarded to staff. 1, condition of the station, its preservation and future utilization should be given additional consideration. 2, the owner and developer consider performing an audit of the train station and providing additional information to the committee through staff. 3, consideration that the cladding material be more reflective of the existing color palette, as well as the steel used to be more reflective of the railroad. 4, consideration to retain a portion of the railway. 5, that the TH&B station should be identified in the Heritage Register. And lastly, that the carriageway be aligned with the railway. So those are our comments. Any question about what we are voting on for the comments before we proceed? Okay, I don't think so. I'm not seeing everyone. Perfect, yeah. Okay, so I'll call the question then. All those in favor of forwarding our comments? Thank you. Lise, can you please indicate your vote?
In favor.
Thank you. I declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. We are on to, we're almost there, guys. Item 5, which is the minutes from June. So I hope you've had an opportunity to review the minutes. We need a mover, and the mover has to be present for the meeting. So Tamara and Councillor Wall, I see as well, has his hand up to second it. Any errors or omissions that need to be rectified within the minutes that anyone notes? Okay, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Passing the minutes. Any opposed? No. Lise, indicate your vote.
In favor.
Thank you. I declare the motion carried. Thank you. All right. 6, heritage application process updates. I would now ask staff to come forward and provide a brief verbal update on the heritage application process.
Thank you, Chair. So staff just wanted to take the opportunity at this meeting to let the committee know. So again, there were amendments that were adopted this summer and came into force this summer for the Ontario Heritage Act. We are looking at our current procedures, how we classify alterations as major or minor, how the demolition process functions. We are intending to take a report or bring a report to Heritage Committee. Right now, our target is Q4 of this year, and we'll look at our existing processes. We'll give an overview of how they have to change to meet the new legislation, and that'll examine both, Part 4 and Heritage Conservation District or Part 5 properties, looking at and giving update to the committee. It also gives us an opportunity to evaluate, again, what is a minor alteration, what is a major alteration, what lessons have we learned or struggles have we had with the current list. We want to give the committee, just let you know now that this is something to look forward to, but we are expecting Q4 for that update. And then once the committee has a chance to see our recommendations as staff and provide comments, we'll be going to council to hopefully have those changes adopted. And we're looking for ways that we can improve the application experience for applicants, but also make sure that we are we're not going to make it so brief. And there's no controls. We are going to make sure there's appropriate conservation. Some things that you might see coming forward are going to be more that you might see more demolition applications, even if those demolitions don't involve negative effects to the designated properties themselves. So we saw one on, I think it was Ada Avenue, near Brant Avenue. It was an individually designated property, and there was a loss of a garage, a detached garage that had no heritage value. So before, we could treat that as an alteration, and we took advantage of the delegated authority enabled from council and process that more quickly for the applicant. Now we would have to treat that as a demolition, and we don't have delegated authority for demolitions just yet. So there are processes in place with the new legislation. We just want to make sure that we can look at everything comprehensively, and the committee will be informed. You'll have a chance to review that report and discuss the changes being proposed. I think our last delegated authority bylaw that was passed in 2016, and that was the first one. So we have some lessons, now that it's been a number of years since, we can review that bylaw and the legislation comprehensively.
Great. Thank you for that update. Does anyone have any questions for Patrick about that? No? Please? Is that you trying to say something there? No, maybe not. Okay. I look forward to hearing back from you, and hopefully you'll be able to in the course of your presentation also include for some of the members some of the changes that Bill 108 did make and make it a little easier for us to understand. So thank you for taking that on, Patrick. Subcommittees. There are no subcommittees meeting at this time. There are no resolutions and there are no notices of motion. So at this point, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Tamara. All right, I hope everyone has a lovely rest of their summer, and we'll see everyone in September. Thank you, everyone.